All right, a mandatory furlough went into effect today in California for 150,000 government workers. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger ordered state workers to take 3 unpaid days off per month until a new budget is in place. The state faces a $19 billion budget shortfall, and the furlough could have an enormous unintended effect. University of California at Berkeley Center for Labor Research and Education Chair Ken Jacobs joins us now. He says the furloughs and other budget cuts could result in the loss of 330,000 jobs. Ken joins us now from Berkeley. Ken, welcome to Bloomberg News. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Ken, that's a big number. How so? What are your metrics? How do you know it could cost that many jobs?
Sure. First, it's important to say the furloughs themselves, the impact is smaller. We estimated that to be in the range of about 4,000 jobs. And we're expecting that the furloughs are having a pretty strong negative impact on those workers who are being furloughed. That's 7 weeks of pay, and that does have a real ripple effect. But we expect that ultimately to be worked out through the budget process. The real concern here is that the governor's proposals for his budget, we went through and estimated how much that would take out of the California economy. They would lose billions of dollars in federal funds, federal matching funds, by passing those cuts.
Right.
And that, between direct and indirect impacts, we estimate would result in the loss of about 330,000 jobs.
Ken, what is the significance that about half of those workers included in the furloughs are paid out of the state's general fund?
Yeah, well, one of the things that has been perplexing around the furloughs, both last year and this year, is they haven't been restricted to workers who are paid by the state general fund. Last year, they furloughed people who were doing tax collections, so they lost money on that. This year, they're continuing to furlough people, for instance, who work for the Department of Motor Vehicles, which is self-financed. What that means is there's an article in the LA Times this morning. People in LA are facing much longer lines to get through the DMV, while there's no gain from that for the state general fund. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
And Ken, where do, in terms of the labor unions, where do they fit into all of this? How does this affect the negotiations with the labor unions that these furloughs are happening?
Well, I think that's the key issue here, because you have to ask yourself, if the furloughs don't make sense from a budgetary perspective, why are they doing it? And I think a lot of it is to put pressure on the unions in negotiations, both around the collective bargaining agreements, but also to put pressure on the overall budget conversation.
And is that something that has been effective thus far in the negotiations we've seen?
Well, not clear. A number of the unions have agreed to contracts that made some concessions, especially most significantly around some of the pensions. But creating this kind of hardship for the workers, it's not clear that that helps in the negotiating process.
Well, Ken, might I ask, will these furloughs have an effect? Will they help the state's budget problems?
To a small extent. I mean, again, last year we estimated they were an extremely inefficient way to help the budget, because so much of the money it doesn't relate directly to the general fund. The part that does helps, but it's a small amount. What's needed is a budget solution, and that's got to be a balanced budget solution that includes some mix of cuts that are needed and some mix of revenues.
Ken, in our last 20 seconds here, we learned today California's unemployment rate remaining steady at 12.3%. You foresee any change in that in the immediate future?
Well, I think that, again, the thing that's the scariest about this is the number of jobs that could be lost through some of the budget proposals on the table are equal to the number of jobs they're projecting that would be created in the next year. So it would significantly prolong the downturn in California.
All right, Ken Jacobs, he's the chair of the University of California Berkeley Center for Labor Research and Education. Ken, thanks so much. We appreciate it.